So I developed this sort of workflow with some AI tools in terms of how you can create a sort of really nice contextual images that could sort of expand your storytelling workflow with your concepts. So this is actually what I wanted to show you today, sort of a step-by-step kind of thing. So let's get to it. All right, so when you want to do this sort of workflow, you need to have a couple of things ready. The first thing is that you need to sort of generate your input, which basically means that you need some sort of image of your concept, preferably with a white background with no context. I think that's a great way to start, and especially if you can have like, so we need, this is basically your concept. And it needs to be on a white background render. We also need it to be, here we go. We also need this sort of thing, my concept to be multiple views is always great. So let's do that. And then we also need to sort of create, you can say, some context. Now, this can be done in different steps, but for this approach that I want to show you, we'll do it separately. So basically, we'll build up the concept, the context separately from the input. It's basically also input, so we'll build it up separately from the concept renders of the concept visuals. And these can be generated, it's basically thinking about, as a photographer or as a set director or set creator, how do you want to build up your context? How do you want to create the scene, the environment that you're, so think photography, think videography. I think those are the things that could be really interesting to keep in mind when you work with context. And obviously, you need to think about what is it that the context that you want your concept be. What context should your concept be placed in, right? And then all of that will sort of lead to some sort of output, right? So I think that's basically what this is about. Is you have these things, right? And that will sort of lead you to a good output. And this output can then again be manipulated in different ways. Typically, I'll start out with a static output, and then there's obviously animations, but there's also 3D files, depending on what you're working on. So I think that's also relevant to say here that you can create 3D models, or not files, but models, basically. Right, so that's basically what you can get out of it. I think these are all relevant to create, and depending on, alrighty, this is fun. And depending on what you actually wanna work with or have in your presentation deck or whatever it is that you're working towards, you can choose from some of these, right? So that's sort of like where I wanted to take it, right? Okay. So basically what we want to do is work with this input, create different aspects, and then create the output from that. And I want to actually use for the input for the concept renders, I want to use a 3D model, and then I want to use Fusion to make the 3D model. I want to use Keyshot for my renderings, and then you can say that's sort of like regular whatever we used to that sort of workflow. But then I also wanted to use some AI tools for creating the scenes, the settings, and for this I want to use Midjourney in this case. I'll get to why in a minute. And then for mashing the two together, there's a bunch of ways to do that, but for this case, I want to use, what's it called? It's called Vizcom, because I feel that it actually works pretty well. Also, it has some pretty good compelling reasons for using that when we're talking about products that are under NDA. So if you're paying for Vizcom, they say that they don't train the models on it. They don't have access to your data, so that should be encrypted. So that's a positive. So basically, this is some of the reasons why I want to use that. So this is sort of like the toolbox that I want to use. So let's figure out what we want to make in this case as an example. For the sake of this session we're doing right now, I wanted to say that normally I go through my sort of ideation phase where I sketch out things digitally or on a piece of paper, and basically sort of selecting from there which one I want to go on with further. And sometimes, it's great just to take a sketch and then you can actually go straight into AI and use that for visualizing it. But I sort of kind of, so far I've been preferring actually going in and modeling stuff up to get a little bit more like precise, and then take those renders and use AI to put them into a context instead. So that's what I'm gonna do for this case. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on the modeling, but I'm just gonna model something up that we sort of have a concept up already, that I already have sketched out somewhere. I have a few in this one that maybe I want to try out. So that's what we're going to start up with, right? So we have a good starting point. And maybe something like this could be super fun to do. This one here, oh, this one there, sorry. Or yeah, I'm sort of inclined to do that. I think it's quite nice. But then on the other hand, I also really like. I also kind of like this one. Maybe we should do that one instead. All right, we'll do this one. All right, so we're gonna have that here in front of me, so I can actually try and see what I'm trying to model up. So that's basically it. So we wanna select a sketch in this case. I already did that. We then want to 2 seconds. I'm going to place it right here so we have it. Hopefully, if it works, it did. It's good. It's way too big, obviously, but we're just gonna scale it down. There we go. All right, so we have a sketch that we want to work with. That's great. Then what we need to do is we wanted to model it up. You can use any CAD program or Blender, whatever you want to do for this sake. We want to model it up, and then we want to create some renders of it, right? And for the model thing, I would like to use Fusion, and I would also like to use Keyshot for rendering. Right. So let's get to that bit, and I'll get back to you once we're done with that. Now I'm gonna do this really fast and really not maybe as professional as I would have done. I normally use a lot of surfacing to do my stuff, but in this case we're just gonna do this instead. So it's not gonna be pretty, but it will actually work as a case for modeling of stuff, right? So All right, so I'm ready to sort of export this and get it into to Keyshot. So I'm gonna export it as a step file, and then that will be it, right? So okay, so I've started up Keyshot, and I'm just gonna drag in my step file here and say okay to all of these things, and you know, we're good to go. Here it is. It's floating because I modeled it up floating, which was obviously bad, but I'll snap it to ground here. All right, we have this, which is looking nice and not very complicated. I want to add some materials, and this always takes a little bit of time, but in the essence of not having too much time, I actually would like the pillow to be some sort of fabric. I got this wonderful dream fabric that I think maybe I'll choose this one instead, some kind of blue fabric here. Yeah, and then I want to use the orange one for the chair itself. I actually don't really want the orange one. I'll go ahead and change it here. Maybe not that one, but this one might look good. All right, so just zoom in here. You see, okay, yeah, we got some fabric. We got some sort of. So that's cool. That's the concept, right? We want to do something with the environment. Like I said, I wanted some kind of good white background renders, but also I need some sort of good lighting so I can capture the forms correctly and nicely in a way that it's easy for the AI to interpret the shapes. So I'm just gonna look for a good lighting session. Then I'm gonna change the light to interior, bump up the shadow quality a little bit. We don't need ground illumination and all that stuff. And also under rendering here, I don't want the ground shadows on for this render, at least not initially, but I would like a color that is white. And then I also want to change my stuff here to get some photographic image settings, some a little bit more contrast, some curvature here, just to boost some of that stuff. And then also under the background color, I want to change it to completely white because then I don't have anything like that. All right, and then in terms of camera, perspective 50, that's too little. I want to make it 120 because that's really what is good. And then you can see that the lighting is pretty awesome. I kind of like it. So let's do some renders. We want front view and zoom it out a little bit. All right, we got this one. We can save it. We can also just add it to our queue here. So we'll add a job here. Okay, we cannot dock this up for some reason, but we also want another view, which is the left. All right, something like this. All right, add job. Now you don't have to do all these adding the cameras and stuff, but it's just if you want to save it, then it's a good idea. I just realized you cannot see anything, so I'm just going to do this so it's easy for you to see what I'm doing over here. All right, so also I need to add maybe another one. It's not really necessary to have all these renders. I'm just going to do it anyway. All right, and then maybe a top one could be interesting, something like this. Adding a job here, and then definitely some sort of isometric view. And here I normally would use let's take a couple of these. Make sure that I get some contrast in the form, so it's easy for this to get recognized. And also something like this, which would be good. Maybe another one where it's like a little bit more like this. Add that, render. All right, so we got quite a few different renders that we want to create. I didn't 2000 by 2000 is what I'm doing here. It's not really much, and it's about 100 samples I'm going to use, so it's not insane amounts. Maybe I also need one from the back, by the way, so I'm going to make one here as well. Again, making sure I have a pretty decent highlight and stuff. Add that. Okay, so I'm just going to render that out and put it into the next step, right? All right, let's do that. Okay, so we managed to actually select the sketch, model it up in Fusion, and then rendering it out in Keyshot. So basically we have the render here as one example of what we came up with and ended up with. So the next step would actually be to talk a little bit about context. So we want to make these contextual renders, and we need to figure out how do we do it. So basically, the first thing we can talk about is the who. So who are making these renders for? Who's the product for? Who's this? In this case, it's a chair. So who's it for? I think it's maybe by the looks of it. Let's have a look at it. It's a little bit more, I don't know, contemporary in a way. So maybe we should say that this chair is for, let's see, a young couple, maybe apartment dwellers, something like that. The next thing we should think about is the what. So in this case, what will happen? What is going to happen in this scene? And I think there should be some. It should be a nice natural setting. I think that we wanted to maybe have some interaction. So maybe there should be some kind of interaction with the chair. That's good. All right. Then we gotta consider. Then we need to consider the next thing, which is the where. So we're gonna make a house. Oh, what? No, we know it's already an apartment, so I want to make it in an apartment. Maybe it should be in a big city. So like Copenhagen, for instance, or Berlin, or perhaps maybe New York, or Delhi. I don't know, we'll figure it out once we get there. But it's a big city anyway. And I think the when is the interesting part, and this is about a little bit more about what are we gonna do in terms of the look and the feel. And I think the golden hour would be great. Maybe that's when at the time of the day. The golden hour always gets some good lighting, so this is a way of thinking of it in terms of photography and cinematography. Golden hour is a great point, so let's stick with that for now. Then there's the how, and the how is always interesting. It's a little bit more about photography. So I think we should do something like a telelens. Take it with that, because then you will have less exaggeration in your viewport or in your photo, and that also means that you don't have this fisheye lens, but you have more like a calmer image, because you have less distortion in your perspective. So I think that would be good. Maybe a 200 millimeter, and I'll get back to why I want to put this in here and consider this before. I also think it would be nice with natural light in the scene. Yeah, let's focus on that. All right, so that's sort of like what we do. So let's jump in. As we said, if we go up here, we're ready to dive into Midjourney. Okay, so we're in Midjourney right now, and I wanted to just point out a few things that I'm using for this thing to work best way I can. There's a new thing called styles. This could be helpful in some way, but I'm gonna be focusing on, as you can see up here, there's this thing called personalize. And I have a couple of profiles. One of them is I trained this under the aesthetics. I trained a couple of different profiles here, and the one I'm probably going to be using is the W7 profile here, and then I'm going to go in and maybe use something like stools and chairs or lamps or backup source as a mood board as a way to influence my imagery. All right, so I'm going to go into create, and here I'll type in what I want. In this case, I know that I'm looking for something with a chair. So let's say a minimalist lounge chair. This is not as important, the subject, because we'll change that later, but I'll need to have some kind of help in terms of focusing my shot. So a minimalist lounge chair in a modern apartment in Delhi at the golden hour. Natural light. Let's put something like crisp colors and contrast. Also, I wanted to maybe say something like natural light, crisp colors, yeah, maybe we'll stick with this, right? We'll stick with this one. And then I'll go into my settings and I'll say, okay, I don't want a portrait right now. I'm looking for a landscape. I think maybe something like 16:9 aspect ratio would be pretty awesome. No, let's do 3:2. Okay. All right, I want to do 4 at the time, if that's possible. Okay, and then I wanted to, let's go into the personalization. I would like the global 7 profile to be on, and then not this one, but let's just start with this one. Just the global profile that I trained. And then I'll punch in, and that we'll wait a little bit. And sometimes based on this, you can actually copy the text by clicking on it over here, and you're ready to do something else. But as you can see, I'm maybe already happy. Golden hour looks great. I actually like the scene of this. It's got some nice light coming through the windows. It's got some greens. This one is also pretty good with the really natural light. Maybe this one is great. I'll click this. Yeah, let's do that. So you can either upscale it already, or I'll just download it here. Yep. And I'm maybe also gonna download this one. Okay, download. All right. Let's see if we can do something like a minimalist lounge chair in a modern apartment in Copenhagen at the golden hour. Maybe we'll do a different aspect ratio this time. So we'll do portrait. We'll do 2:3 there, and we'll start it up. Same global profile, but then just looking at a different aspect ratio and also maybe a different place. Still like the golden hour, so we'll stick with that. All right, already now you can see the furniture is a little bit different. The apartment is a little bit different. That's cool. Maybe it feels a little bit like it's. Now let's see what comes up with here. If I'm not really happy with it, I can do it again. But I need to figure out what I'm gonna change. So let's see, modern apartment in Copenhagen with contemporary abstract art. Whimsy colors, lots of greenery. All right, and let's see what it says there. Maybe it'll be better. I actually kind of like this one as well. So you see the flooring is different and everything, so we'll take that one. All right, let's see. And you get the point of how I'm sort of like getting into this and building up the scene without me actually doing anything else with it. Let's do something with, instead of Copenhagen, we'll take New York. and see what it says there. Same aspect ratio, everything else is the same. It's got some more art on the side, on the background. This one is great, but I'm worrying that, well, let's try that out. It's a pretty nice one. Download this one. All right. And this is one in New York, it's supposed to be. So it's funny how the chairs keep changing a little bit. I actually like the colors on this one. The color tone is pretty great. The shadow is pretty good. I'll take this one. Allow it. All right. So we have that already. Let's go back to our mirror board and just discuss what we're going to do with that. All right, in the next step, right? So let's do that. Okay, so we are actually here now. We have this set of renders of the chair that we want to put into this context. So that's pretty good, and we'll deal with a few things, like maybe the colors is not great. Maybe we can change that later on. But anyway, we want to do this. We have these examples here. Let's put that into context. So I'm gonna open up Vizcom to actually do this. So we'll do that. So I'm gonna open up Vizcom here. Gonna log in here. That's awesome. And then we're gonna go into let's see, new file. We're gonna create a new file, and this one is gonna be called chair. And then we're gonna go start in Workbench, which is my favorite place to start. Basically, I'm gonna find the renders. I'm gonna drop them in here. I'm gonna also find the contextual stuff and drop that in here. All right. So now that we have our main sort of materials in here, I actually want to see. Let's see. It's gonna load it up here. I have contextual stuff up here. And this is my context stuff, and this is my subject, my chair. Okay, so I want to do something. I want to put these together, and normally I could just go in and try and replace the chair here, which we can try. We can do different things, but let's see if we can replace this one. So I will use an action called modify. So I have this image here, and maybe this image. These are pretty good views to help out understand this view. So let's do that. We'll actually maybe use this one to begin with. Then we're gonna drag it out from the plus here, choose modify, and then start describing my changes. When I do that, I can actually add more images once I have sort of described my images. So I'm gonna add this one as well. And then I'm gonna add this one at the end, because this one, it doesn't really matter, but the aspect ratio from the last one is the one that is gonna choose. It says original, but I could also just go in and say I want a vertical, I want a landscape based on this, but let's just keep it like original, this aspect ratio. And then I want to try and say replace the chair in image 3 with the one from with the brown chair from image 1 and 2, keeping scale and proportions and colors accurate and aligned with image 3. And then we'll just see what happens. We'll press once and we'll have a look at it. So I'm basically gonna add these two images and then this one from my context and see how that looks. So that's what we're gonna do here. And you can see the prompt and you can see the result over here. All right, that looks completely crappy. So let's see. I'm gonna do one more. I'm also gonna try and do the pro one here. There's different modes down here. Pro will actually keep the stuff more consistent. Like this one, obviously replaced. It doesn't do anything good with the colors. Sometimes you needed to do a couple of more. See, at least something happened with the colors. Not really happy with the perspective of this one though. But maybe it's because the chair is too big. So if I'm gonna do, it always takes longer to generate the Pro, by the way. While it does that, I can keep thinking about saying, okay, I don't really, maybe I don't want to keep the proportions, but I want to, yeah, see, this is already better, right? All right, the aspect ratio crapped out when I chose the Pro, which is annoying. So I'm going to do this one again. Hopefully that will help me. That's an honest mistake. It's not bad, this one actually, but you know, actually this one is pretty good. The colors are pretty good, which is one I was worrying about here. Perspective a little bit off. It's also very big, it seems, but let's try this one. Okay, so we have the aspect ratio. I think this one could be pretty good, pretty damn good. Pretty happy with that one. So we're gonna put that in here. Okay, so that was with the modify replace function. There's also another way. Let's take this one here, put it down here, so we'll have it in close. It's still a little bit the same two images I would use. So I'm gonna copy this one, and I'm gonna copy this one, holding down, I guess, the Alt button. And then we're gonna do a modify again, dragging from, let's say, the top one here, and then choose modify. Then go in and describe my changes here. And then I can do something with that. I can add this one as well. Okay, so I want to be able to place this one here, but I want to see if I can do something else, which is basically this other version where you do a modify here. So you can do the you can do a modify here where I remove. So I'm gonna do a modify here and then remove chair, and then keep aspect ratio original, and let's just try and do this one. Again, standard is a little bit faster, not as heavy, so we're gonna do that in this case. It will actually give us just the context without any chair in it, which is also super nice. So maybe there's a little bit more freedom going forward with that if it works. Let's see. Removing the chair. It's still thinking. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, which is annoying, but fair enough. That's how it is. All right. Yeah. Okay. What did it do different? That actually looks pretty decent. Pretty damn consistent. All right. We have a scene which we kind of like. Okay. So now that we have this image, let's try and put that together with this one over here. So I'm gonna just zoom out a little bit here, move this all the way over here, and then I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna modify this. So I'm gonna use this one and say place. I want to place the chair from image 1 and 2 in on the floor in the light on image 3, and we want to keep the aspect ratio original, which is this context, and then let's just do the standard, but also have one with Pro just to have something to compare with, right? Standard and Pro. This is just interesting for us to know about. So I'm gonna put in this is way too. All right, see, now I actually think the size of the chair is pretty good. I also kind of like the lighting in this one. It's getting natural light. The shadows are cast onto here, which is also good. So it looks like it's placed. This one is also super nice, actually. And you can tell that this one is actually a little bit bigger. Maybe this is a better size in terms of referencing the pot, the plant. Again, I forgot all about the the aspect ratio, but I really like this one. So let's keep that there. Can I convert this? maybe let's do a 3x2, and then can I upscale it? Maybe. So I double clicked on it and I got into this mode, which is allowing me to obviously do something here. With it just pulling in the corners, I can get to an aspect ratio I kind of like, which is this one. Alright, I'm going back to Workbench. Okay, so now I have something I really like. It needs to think. Okay, great. Alright, so that's how you do it with just having an image without anything in it, basically removing the object that you had before and then using that. It actually worked maybe a little bit better. I don't know. This one is also pretty good, honestly. So it's not at all bad. All right, we have these two. There's another way of doing it here. So we tried the one where we just modified it directly. We also tried one where we removed the scene. And now I'm going to try one where we try the unify one. So in that case, I'm going to try this one for context. Did it work? No, yeah, here we are. This is a different one. I haven't tried this one before, but it's called Unify. So if I double click on this one, I go into my studio, and there are some options over here on the right side. You cannot see them all, I think. Let me just adjust myself a little bit here. All right. All right, so here on the right side there are some things like you can see that you can do things with variation, make 3D, and then here you have adjust, which is great because you can do things. In this case, I actually need to remove, I realize that now, I need to remove, so I'm gonna go back because I really like the, wait, I can do that in there. Let's go into edit again. If I go back to modify, I can remove the chair in the image. Alright. And it gives me 4 results, which is great. And then from here on out, I can also add some stuff to it, which I'm going to do in a minute. Because we need to add the chair in here. And also do a little bit about sizing and stuff. But we'll start up with just removing the current chair here. It gives us some results already. Yeah. It's smaller, slider changes. See, the funny thing is the colors also still got the shadow, which is a little bit weird. Yeah, still doesn't have the shadow there, or remove the shadow. Maybe it will look better when we unify, but let's just see the last one. Alright, we'll take this one, the last one, we'll add that. Okay, so now we have this one. Then we need to add in, let's put a new layer in here, and then we wanna, no, we don't want to do that yet. We wanna, where is my add image? Basically I want to add my next image in here, my renderer. So let's go into renderers, and let's have a view that fits with this one where it's the other way around. So no, yeah, that one maybe. Let's put that in here. Okay, good, we're in here. We have this one. We need to remove the background, so adjust, remove background, which will just remove the background from this layer. Group, I guess. And then we'll hide this one. So we have a second new layer with this one. Okay, we can see it's smaller, so we need to scale it up a little bit, like this maybe. And let's try and click unify just to see how that will look. And basically what it's supposed to do is analyzing the scene, the whole scene, and then trying to place the chair in the scene, if it works. We'll see. Takes a little bit of time, but it's interesting to check out if this actually works. Remember, this is the first time I've done this. I don't know if it actually will work, but I hope it will. So this is complete. All right, it's pretty good. It didn't. I mean, it really definitely unified in terms of the lighting and stuff. What it didn't do is the perspective. There's something wrong with the perspective in this case. What I then want to do instead, maybe, is go out again to my workbench. No, I want to go in again. No, I want to do, yeah, I want to go in. I'm going to edit this one. Then I'm going to hide all these things here. And then I'm going to go add to workbench, which means I can add this layer to my workbench. I also want to add this one. Oh, we already have that one. This one, sorry. That doesn't really matter. We go back here. Okay. This was my work in progress thing. It didn't really work, but I have this one, and then I have the renders down here, and I want to do this one. We already have a 3D model, so it's not really necessary to do this. Maybe I can just add my 3D model in here. Did anything work? No. Okay, so importing a 3D file is maybe a good idea, maybe not. I was thinking that maybe I just wanted to try and generate a 3D model inside of Vizcom. And the way to do that is actually, you have this one here, a good view where you can see most of the stuff. And then you go up and you say, what do you say? Then you say edit, I guess, or maybe this one. Yes, this one. You click on the small stars, you can prompt or you can 3D model. And I choose 3D model. Okay, so another way to do it besides this is actually you can go in and press edit, and we'll do that later, but just let's look at this one here. I'll double click on this one. I'll go into this view mode here, where I should be able to see my 3D model, which is sort of working, but maybe not great. Here you can also see which models you can upload, and it also says upload FBX, GLT, FGLB, STL, and OBJ. So there's maybe options of uploading a model with a texture on, which is actually what I'm trying to do here. So I'm gonna go into edit, and then over here on this make 3D, I can choose different things. I can say detail sharp, detail smooth, max, which balances quality. I'll choose this one. But then on the advanced, I'll choose quad topology, and even I can do part separation with this one. I can choose a high detail mesh and high detail texture, and then I'll generate. It will take up, it says it will take about 3.5 minutes, and then it will be available up here. So let's just wait for that. Here we have, this one is hidden, and now you can see my 3D model, which is pretty decent. It's not bad. This will do in what we are trying to achieve here. So my initial issue with the Unify one was actually that you had some issues with the just see here, with the perspective, right, in the Unify, which is up here. So I am gonna take this one up here so I can sort of see what I'm doing. Actually, I'm gonna go into edit, and then I'm gonna add in my layer with a I'm gonna add in the file that we were using, which I don't have here, so I'm gonna go back. This one, I'm gonna download it. It's downloaded. I'm gonna go in here. Canvas settings, size. what's happening here. No, we got this one. 3-2, but we want to have I cannot do that. I want actually to flip it around, so let's do that. Okay. And then I want to add in my this one. Okay, and then I want to move the 3D model up here. And no, that was not the 3D model. Where is the 3D model? It's up here. Yeah, here we go. And I want to replace. There's also something about the. This is all weird. 120. No. 85. So basically I'm gonna try and see if I can come up with a good angle for this. You can see I get more control. I can also scale it up and down, which is great. So now maybe I'm getting somewhere where I can put it where I want. There's something about the perspective. Okay, you can get it with a mesh, you can get it with colors. 85 is, maybe it's 65. Maybe that's better. Put it here, right? So we have something like this. Oh, damn it. And then, no, I'm recording. Out. And then we can do the unify one, where we try this one. And hopefully that'll work. I'm not sure. Something weird happened when we did this, when I tried to get out of the selection. But it's definitely trying to process the scene. I don't know what's happening with the perspective on this one. It's there, but it's not there. Huh. Okay, so it luckily got what I wanted to do. It didn't mess up the scale completely. If I zoom in, it's a little bit odd. It's a little bit more soft than what I had with my original design. And the texture on this one is not great. But if I do, if I'm fairly happy with this one, I can go in and then I can say export it in a higher res. I can also add to my workbench, which is great. And then I can hide it, and then I can try again with this one being maybe like this. Move a little bit here. It's about figuring out what is a good perspective, and and don't do that. And then we'll press in the unify body, unify function here again, and hopefully that will work. All right, let's see. I'm curious about this. It takes a little while to process, but hopefully we'll get there soon enough. Have a little faith and a little bit of patience. So this is another way of getting your model into the 3D scene. It works pretty well. Alright, I'm gonna take this one and then I'm gonna let's see, I'm gonna add to my workbench. I'm gonna exit this one, and now I have these two new ones which we just did based on the 3D model, which is looking pretty good. And what I can do, I obviously can download them, as we said before. I can go into edit. I can click on this one. I can say export image in a higher res, and it's gonna upscale that to 4 times the resolution, which is probably a lot, and maybe not even necessary. But I'm just gonna do it anyway, so I have something to work with. Hopefully that will be much sharper details if we're lucky. So yeah, that's one way of doing it. or two ways of doing it, I guess. The 3D model, the Unify version where you sort of move it around. There is the one where you have the basically just merge the two together, like replacing the chair using the modify version. And then there is, I guess the last one, what we haven't talked about is actually where, and I'll try that in a minute once this is done. So I'm gonna let you know what I'm doing there. All right, it takes some time to upscale. All right, once it's done, I'm gonna go back, get back to you once I have it downloaded. Okay, just wanted to recap. So we have done the modify scene here, where we used the modify function with a couple of images from the renders, and then a scene without anything in there, which basically uses this one, right? So we have done that, and these are the results up here for the modify, and some of these were pretty good. There were some issues with scale sometimes, which was, annoying. Then we had the other one, which was the Unify version here, where we did use a 3D model that we generated, and then we had a scene with nothing in it. Again, we removed the chair that was in there already. I can kind of tell that it's right there anyway. But and then we used the Unify under the adjust inside of the studio studio workspace, and then you had the these are the results that came out of that, and I scaled up. So one of them is the original scale, and you can see this the quality, whereas here's the scaled up twice version. It's a lot better, at least. So yeah, so we had these two versions, and then I guess we can try and have a look at what else is there in Vizcom that we haven't explored. So going back to Vizcom, going into the workbench, we have the context visuals here. We have the replace version here, which is this one where we didn't do anything, we just had the chair in there, and then we replaced that one. So we also had that version. All right, cool. Here we just removed the chair. This is the version that we used a couple of times to get the right results on the way. All right, so I think that's about it in terms of what we can do right now using Vizcom to get to some contextual stuff. I think it's time to talk about the next step, which is putting it into context, getting some animations in there. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, just to recap. So we had tried to work our way with different ways of getting our object, our chair, in a specific setting, right? We had the replace modify, where we basically just went in and took a couple of images of our renders, and then a scene that we generated in Midjourney, and then say replace the chair, we're in there, and we got these results, which were kind of good, but there was something about size. This one is pretty good, this one is also decent, right? Then we tried to do something where we removed the chair before, so remove modify version, and then we would get something like this, which we can then use to replace in an empty scene. So we modified and placed it into a scene. We got these results, which is also really interesting. There was something about scale again. And then the last one we did was this one, where we tried to use the Unify with 3D models. So we generated a 3D model, we had an empty scene, and then we placed our object, and we could get more control over the scale with this one, which was pretty awesome. Alright, cool. So it's time to talk about animation, which is kind of like the next step if you wanted to get some more visual references. Basically you have these three, I just chose them, and then you can drag out here and you can choose animate. I'm just gonna do it again so you can see what I'm doing here. Zooming in here, animate, and you get this sort of prompt where you have a start or end reference. So if you have two images, you can use that, and then you can sort of prompt your way to it. You can also say how long is it and what type you're doing here. Standard 2 is pretty awesome. You also have some animation presets in terms of if you wanted to pan left or pan right or zoom in or zoom out, which is pretty awesome. And then you can press the animate button. Alright, before I do that though, let me just do something else, which is building up a few more images from this one so we can try and work with the from one scene to another. So let's do this, and then we do modify, and then we do a bird's eye view of this scene. Let's see if that works. Aspect ratio is original, so that's the same one as this one. We got the standard mode. We can do pro to, it will take a little longer, but it will also maybe be better results. So we can also do a standard one just to check out. Alright, so we want to have something else we can modify it from. Let's say you want to do a specific movement. Maybe we also want to do a modify version of this one where we are maybe looking at different perspectives. So let's do modify and then new view. Let's see if we can do something like left, top, this one. Let's see. Alright, so this one freaked it out of completely, so that was actually the pro one, whereas the one that we did was original was standard one was much better. And then we have these two here, which is not what we were looking for at all. Actually, it actually just generated more of the same, and then this one changed the perspective of the chair, which is interesting. I mean, that was not what we were going for. It kept everything else the same, so it did change the view of the model, so that didn't work, right? Alright, this one kind of worked. Sorry. Alright, let's do a modify instead, where we zoom in on pillow on chair. Let's see here, we'll move this one down here, and we'll see where to put the image over here. Sometimes it's putting images in the correct, place, but it's always a little bit off to the side. This one was really nice lighting though, but it obviously didn't get the chair at all. It kind of got the pillow, but didn't do anything else really. This one is much more coherent and ready to. Anyway, we're just building out these, trying to get some more images that we can use for the scene build up and construct our animation if we wanted to. Another way to control this is actually if you wanted to modify this, and then you want to place a woman in there's a woman from India in the chair looking out of the window. Alright, we can also, let's do that. Let's see. Still working on this one though. And that took us a little bit longer than we wanted to. Don't know why it's taking so long for that one. This one, we have a woman looking out. Okay, cool. I don't know why she's wearing, but anyway, we'll do there's a man from in his 50s in the chair looking out the window. Okay, let's see. In this way we can get sort of build out our, we can also change, like say this one, we can maybe modify this woman, we maybe wanted her. Alright, we put him in another chair next to the other chair. That's great. Alright, that was not what we wanted to. Let's try and do another one, but in this case we actually want to change her. Put sneakers on her feet. Alright, that's better. I don't know why he's wearing a anyway, he's wearing a shirt. It's a bit weird. He does that. I don't, but I'm not in my 50s either. Okay, very cool. All right, she's got sneakers. I think that's a little bit better. Awesome. All right, so we have this one. We can use that for our animation as well. We have this one. All right, cool. And we got a close. No, it didn't do what I wanted to. Because you can see kept everything else the same, more or less. We didn't zoom in on the scene. But maybe we can do that with animation. So anyway, we're doing this to build out some extra stuff for our animation. It's always helpful. So let's start animating. All right, so let's do this one. We want to do an animation here where we have the start scene with the chair, and then this one. So, and we don't, in this case, we don't really have to say anything. We can just press animate, and then hopefully we'll understand what I wanted to get this woman into the view, or into the seat. So it'll take a little while to do it, but hopefully not too long. We can also maybe try and let's see. We'll just do this for now, and then we will have the same maybe for this one, animate, and then this one. Well, actually no, we want to animate this one, and then have him leave the chair. So we'll do this one. So we have this guy and this chair, and we'll just do this one, and then we'll let it work, and we'll see how it goes, right? So stay tuned for that. So how did it go with the animations? Well, not great at first. You can see here, without putting any prompt in, as we did, she would just magically appear, which is not great. Like, you can see the shadow, but she's just like popping up, which is not great. So, but if you do this, woman enters and sits down, it becomes much better, and the result is much more as we wanted it to. She goes in, she even leans her hand on the chair rest or the backrest there. She sits down, hands in her lap. So that, I mean, that's good. I can then just click here and download, and even if I wanted it to, I can download it in 2K or 4K if I have the time, and also it requires a little bit more tokens. The same problem actually on this here, when I didn't put any prompt in there, he would just disappear weirdly, as you can see here, like he fades away like he's a ghost, and by the way, the cushion pops up. So I tried doing the same thing here. Man stands up and walks away from chair, and it's definitely better. The issue we can see here is that there's no real telling of that, so it just like magically appears, which is not great either. So there might be some stuff here that we need to clear out, but for instance, I could do, to clear that up, I could probably do something like this, and then have sort of could probably do something where he stands up. So you can, if you do this like this place in time, you can click on the enlarge, and you actually go to this place where you can scrub through the whole video and say, let's say that this actually, or maybe this is a good place to say, okay, I want to save this image. I can then add current frame, and if I double click out here, you can see that it adds that frame here, and I could use that to, you can say, do a new animation. So for instance, I don't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I could do something with that. So I maybe have an extra step between this and that. So I could do here, and then I could click animate, and then I could put the new frame in here, and then sort of say man gets up from chair and starts walking away. Now there's no real, you can not add another step in here, so, but you can do this. Maybe you have this sort of middle ground, then you can add another one from the end frame of this new animation, and then do something where it disappears, and then you have like two different videos you can put together, for instance, and that's another way to control it. But yeah, I also tried with this one where I said, I don't have any end frame, but I just want a woman to enter the room with a coffee mug and sits down on the chair. And I also tried different ones. This one was actually me trying to say that I wanted to hover up and no, actually this one was I wanted to have a lot of pillows dropping onto the chair, and it just did this crazy thing, whereas here I wanted, I think, to hover or something or melt. Yeah, it was the melting thing, kind of worked, but also didn't really work. But it ended up being an interesting chair, by the way, this one here at the end. And then I think the last two is maybe where the woman enters. Oh, then no, that's the time lapse. Oh yeah, so I tried to do a time lapse, again just prompting my way through time lapses. This one was not bad, but then this thing happens over here, which is annoying. Is this another time lapse? No, this is where she walks in, right, and sits down. So that's pretty awesome. And then you can take, like I did before, I can go in, and I did that. I took the end frame and added that to here, and then I could use that as well. Maybe upscaling it or downloading it, all that stuff. So that's one way of animating stuff in here is just using that animate button, and you have this start and end frame. You can also choose how long it is. All right, I think that's enough for the tutorial for today. Let me just zoom out so you get an idea of what we've been through. We went to the we generated some context, we did some subjects here, we also tried making a 3D model. We did that as well inside of Vizcom, and we used the unifier to get results like this. It ended up being pretty good. You had the other option of replacing a chair from another context render using the modified version. Pretty good results. And then we had remove modify, so just removing the chair, so we had sort of like an open-ended scene but with a nice composition. And then doing the place an empty scene modify, which was this one. Less control, basically. And yeah, so we used that for our generating a bunch of images that we could use for references when we wanted to animate, and that was about it. So again, thanks again for joining me on this very long tutorial. I apologize for that, but I hope some of it were useful. Feel free to go in and just pick and choose the chapters that you want to, watch or rewatch again. So, and if you like this type of content, you know what to do. So, thanks again. Take care. Bye bye.